I'm honored and very grateful to be here before you today as President Donald Trump's nominee to lead the National Aeronautic and Space Administration. I have lived the American dream, and I owe this nation a great debt. I would happily serve President Trump in any capacity, but to work alongside the people that have expanded the boundaries of exploration and brought humanity closer to the stars would be the privilege of a lifetime. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge my crewmates, as you did earlier, Senator, along with my wife, Monica, and my two wonderful daughters that are sitting behind me, Mila and Liv. I do recognize I am a newcomer, so I thought I would share a bit about my story, along with my understanding of the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead. I am an entrepreneur, and my journey began when I took a risk and left school at age 16 to build a company in my parents' basement. Despite my unconventional start, I found success very early in life and led my company into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that employs thousands. I'm a pilot with an aeronautics degree. Over the last 20 years, I've flown over 7,000 hours in jets and ex-military aircraft, setting world records and performing in air shows. My passion for aviation also led me to start another company, this time a defense aerospace business. As a company, we operated the world's largest private air force. Our job was to fly fighter jets as adversaries, executing enemy tactics and training American warfighters. We managed hundreds of millions in defense contracts and saved taxpayers billions along the way. I'm also an astronaut. Alongside a talented team, I led 2 record-breaking missions to space. On my last mission, we tested a new spacesuit while performing a spacewalk and orbited farther away from Earth than any human has gone since the last time Americans walked on the moon. Along the way, my 2 crewmates, Sarah Gillis and Anna Menon, became the women who have journeyed farthest from Earth ever. I'm an advocate for science. During these missions to space, my crew and I performed approximately 50 science and research experiments. I've also publicly supported the Chandra X-ray Observatory and offered to fund a mission to extend the life and capabilities of the Hubble Space Telescope. I care about the people back at home and our collective future here on Earth. My space career did not burden the taxpayers. They were privately funded and aimed at inspiring and helping people all over the world. One example is the over $250 million we raised to support St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and their critical work to ensure no child dies in the dawn of life. Alongside these efforts, I personally donated hundreds of millions of dollars to charitable endeavors. I share all of this because I am not a typical nominee for this position. I've been relatively apolitical. I am not a scientist. I never worked at NASA. I do not think these are weaknesses. In fact, I believe President Trump found them to be strengths. And if confirmed, I will bring all my experience to the greatest adventure in human history, the quest to discover the secrets of the universe. On that note, NASA is the most accomplished and respected space agency in the world, but for all NASA's historic achievements, the agency is not without challenges. Presidents have called for a return to the moon and a path to Mars since 1989, and well over $100 billion has been spent without the intended results. Most programs, new telescopes, rovers, X-planes, entire spaceships, are over budget and behind schedule. And this is discouraging because when people look up at the stars and wonder what is out there, they want those answers today and not decades down the road. And I know it is not lost on members of this committee that we have geopolitical rivals moving at impressive speeds. It's imperative for our national security, our pride, and all that we stand to gain in exploration that we never come in second place. If confirmed, and with the support and guidance of President Trump and members of Congress, we will reinvigorate a mission-first culture at NASA with the following objectives. First, American astronauts will lead the way in the ultimate high ground of space. As the President stated, we will prioritize sending American astronauts to Mars, and along the way, we will inevitably have the capabilities to return to the moon and determine the scientific, economic, and national security benefits for maintaining a presence on the lunar surface. We will focus our technology development efforts on the world's greatest engineering challenges, such as the practical application of nuclear propulsion, so we can truly unlock humankind's ability to explore among the stars. Second, we will ignite a thriving space economy in low Earth orbit. By working alongside international partners and industry, we can unlock the true economic potential of space and deliver meaningful benefits to the American people, potentially even charting a course for NASA to become a financially self-sustaining agency. Number 3, NASA will be a force multiplier for science. We will leverage NASA's scientific talent and capabilities to enable academic institutions and industry to increase the rate of world-changing discoveries. We will launch more telescopes, more probes, more rovers, and endeavor to better understand our planet and the universe beyond. If confirmed, I will work alongside and recruit the most talented minds this nation has to offer, and we will concentrate our resources towards achieving the near impossible, the objectives that no other agency, company, or institution is capable of accomplishing. We will do so knowing the risks and the groundbreaking opportunities that lie ahead, because some risks, like exploring the worlds beyond ours, are worth taking. We will do this not just to expand our knowledge or strengthen our national security, but to improve all life here on Earth and inspire the next generation to reach even further. This is why America needs NASA, why the world needs NASA, because there is no more important investment than inspiring our children to build a better and more exciting future. And the best way NASA can do that is by delivering on our mission and ushering in a new golden age of science and discovery, and we will not fail. Thank you.
If you're confirmed, you will oversee NASA's various field centers, mission directorates, and affiliated activities. This includes Artemis and the Moon to Mars program, which aims to keep us one step ahead of nations like China in the fight for supremacy in space. The threat from China is very real. Just last week, General Saltzman, Chief of Space Operations for the Space Force, testified before the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission that Beijing has been explicit, as recently as October of last year, in stating that China intends to surpass the United States and become the world's preeminent space power. As General Saltzman put it, quote, China's advancement in space technology, their stated desire to dominate, and Beijing's disregard for international norms for the responsible use of space make them an incredible danger to U.S. prosperity and security. China has said that they will put a man on the moon by 2030, and that they will build a permanent lunar base there along with Russia by 2035. Based on how quickly they have already progressed, I think it is quite possible that China reaches those milestones sooner than those dates, and indeed that China reaches the moon before the end of President Trump's current term. Mr. Isaacman, if China beats us to the moon, what consequences might America face?
Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate that question, and I couldn't agree more with all of your commentary, sir, including in your opening remarks. We certainly cannot lose. If we do not lead the way and we're following, we may be following forever, and the consequence of which could be extraordinary. I mean, even if you're talking about things that have maybe even a low probability, let's say, for example, on the lunar surface, helium-3 becomes a new source of fusion power. It could shift the balance of power here on Earth. I don't think we can afford to find that out the hard way. As you said, sir, and I have agreed for a very long time, space is the ultimate high ground. We cannot afford to cede that ground.
So my team did a visual representation of what the stakes are. And it's a simple question: what does the future look like in 2030? When we met in my office, you said beating China back to the moon was, quote, critical for our national interests. You also said that if President Trump turns on the television and sees Chinese astronauts on the surface of the moon before Americans, you said you would be fired that day. In your written testimony, however, you said, quote, we will prioritize sending American astronauts to Mars. There seems to be a bit of tension between the commitment you made in my office and your testimony. What is your view? Will you maintain course with the Artemis program so that we can return American astronauts to the moon before President Trump leaves office?
Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate the statement. First, I couldn't agree more with the president and his inspiring and ambitious goal to send American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on Mars. He didn't say we shouldn't go to the moon. I suspect the president, as I feel, and probably a lot of Americans, is what's taking us so long to get back to the moon, and why does it cost so much money? I absolutely want to see us return to the moon. As I mentioned in my prepared remarks, determine the economic, scientific, and national security value, while we are also proceeding towards Mars. I don't think we have to make any tough trades here, Senator. I think if we can concentrate our resources at the world's greatest space agency, we don't have to make a binary decision of moon versus Mars, or moon has to come first versus Mars. I think we could be paralleling these efforts and doing the near impossible, which is exactly why the American taxpayers funded NASA in the first place.
Well, I will say on the question of whether NASA has to implement moon then Mars, United States law is explicit and unequivocal on that. 51 U.S.C. Section 20302, which Senator Cantwell and I wrote, says, vision for space exploration. The administrator shall establish a program to develop a sustained human presence in cislunar space or on the moon as a stepping stone to future exploration of Mars and other destinations. The notion of the moon as a stepping stone is explicitly in U.S. law. Do you acknowledge that?
Yes, I do, Senator.
And let me ask you, given the current NASA budget, if we assume for a moment we're not going to see a dramatic shift and NASA's budget double tomorrow, do you believe it is possible to stand up a full mission to the moon and a full mission to the Mars simultaneously?
Senator, as I mentioned in my prepared remarks, I think we can absolutely do that. We can figure out the space economy in low Earth orbit. We can run more scientific missions. This is the agency that went from sending Alan Shepard on a suborbital mission, and 8 years later, we saw Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the surface of the moon. Do I think that we can get back to the moon, chart a course for Mars, and do all the other things? Absolutely, Senator.
So do we have your commitment that you will not allow the scenario on the right on this poster to happen, that China will not beat us to the moon, that one of these heroes sitting in this room will set his or her, and as a father of two daughters, I'm particularly excited that Artemis is committed. It will be a her. The first woman will step foot on the moon, and she will be an American astronaut. Do we have your commitment that we will win the race to the moon and China will not beat us?
Senator, I only see the left-hand portion of that poster.
No doubt of your capabilities at the technical side of this and the expertise, both on the aviation and the space side. It's a question, I think, of a long-term challenge of different administrations to deliver on this goal, and how each administration and each Congress does or doesn't support it. I view your job as like wrangling the powers that be to support the mission and understand what it's going to take to support the mission. So like Senator Cruz, I want to understand a little bit more about your commitments. The most recent economic impact report highlighted that in fiscal year 2023, NASA projects to generate more than $75 billion in economic output. And the National Academy studies chaired by Norm Augustine found that NASA's budget is often incompatible with the scope, complexity, and difficulty of its mission work. That means that we end up shortchanging it to certain degrees. So I want to make sure I understand what your commitment is, because there's been so much in the press. Do you commit not to closing any of the NASA's 10 centers or divesting from critical infrastructure without the expressed authorization of Congress?
Senator, you absolutely have my commitment to work alongside Congress. I think NASA is going to require the best and brightest from across the nation and all of our critical infrastructure in order to achieve its mission to do the near impossible for all humankind.
Do you see any reason to close these 10 centers?
Senator, there's only so much that I can be briefed on in advance of this opportunity. I fully expect to roll up my sleeves and determine, where all of our best resources are, so we can get back to achieving the mission as quickly as possible.
The 2024 National Academy's report noted that the use of service and firm fixed-price contracts at an early stage of technology development can jeopardize mission success and degrade NASA's own in-house technical capabilities. What are your thoughts about these fixed-term contracts?
Senator, as
with that statement, I guess, do you agree with that statement? They can be deleterious. I'm just asking if you agree with that.
Well, I take two things away from that, Senator. First, having run a defense aerospace company for more than a decade, and generally I am a fan of fixed firm price contracts and being held accountable to what we bid. In terms of the difference between NASA's in-house expertise and what commercial industry is able to provide, I believe NASA should be working on, again, per my prepared remarks, on the near impossible, what no one else is capable of doing. And when they figure it out, commercial industry takes over and brings the rest of the world to follow.
You might be one heck of a entrepreneur in relation to science. You said you're not a scientist, but that won't matter if we make very bad decisions based on somebody's arbitrary budget analysis instead of what is our long-term mission. So that's what we're trying to get out of you. How do you think we're going to accomplish this so that we have a more, listen, the more we can explain this to everybody, I guarantee you the more my colleagues will support it in a budget. The more it gets slashed and burned by different approaches by DOGE, the more harmful it can become to people, undermining the support for the mission overall. So you have a big challenge here. It's to move us forward at a critical moment. Where are you? So do you believe that we should have a reduction in workforce or the science budget, some of the things that I mentioned in my opening statement?
Senator, I read what's on NASA Watch and in the news like everybody else. If I'm confirmed, I am eager to understand all of the considerations, the discussions being made about a reorganization. I believe that we are going to need the best and brightest to do the near impossible, and we should be concentrating all of our resources on the most critical objectives that I kind of outlined in my opening remarks, ma'am.
Do you support the continued Artemis mission with the Space Launch System?
Senator, I believe that is currently the plan. I'd like nothing more than to see this Artemis II crew get around the moon, and then they're back at home watching their friends walk on the moon. I think the real question is again, why has it taken so long? Why does it cost so much money?
But in the issue of, are we going to commit to this? I think this and the lander redundancy are kind of like, people see that as we're going to the moon and we're going to get this done, not this discussion of like, we're going to skip these things, shortchange this, and then we're going to focus on Mars in a different route. That's what I'm trying to get from you. Whether when you get there, I get that you're saying it's the current plan. I'm asking as a nominee to run this organization, do you have a different view of that you think right now there is a different way to do this?
Well, ma'am, I can tell you not just as a nominee, but as a space enthusiast who wants my daughters to see American astronauts walking on the moon. It was the left-hand side of that poster that I'm fully supportive of. I'd like nothing more than to see Artemis II get around the moon and, again, see Americans walking on the moon. And, again, I don't think these are either or. I mean, NASA is an extraordinary agency that can do the near impossible. We can chart a course for Mars in line with the president's vision to return to the moon before the Chinese can get there, to figure out the space economy and do the other things, ma'am.
There's a lot here. So the HiCam program on thermoplastic composites, do you support that program at NASA?
I think NASA has the best, brightest, most talented engineers and scientists, and we should be working on cutting-edge technology.
Okay, I will want for the record whether you support that in clarity, not just like, hey, I like cutting edge technology. These are really big decisions that lots of us have already weighed in on, and we just want to know whether they're going to get slashed someday because the president wakes up and says he doesn't want to do it, and whether you're going to say yes, yeah, go ahead. So it will take all of us working together. Ms. Trustee, I don't want you to keep going ignored through the conversation. My time has expired. I will want to come back to you on the MVD, the broadcasters getting more ability in the marketplace, particularly as I mentioned earlier. You want a vibrant news competition, particularly when it comes to local journalism, reopening that case at the FCC, but I will take that for coming back on a second round. And I love that Senator Wicker thinks that you play chess instead of checkers, because we need a lot more chess playing at the FCC. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mr. Isaacman, I'd just like to start with you. I guess I just wanted a little more clarity about, are you committed to having a permanent presence presence on the moon?
Senator, I think the biggest thing is we need to get back there. It's been taking a very long time, and the American taxpayers have invested an awful lot.
I agree with you on that front. I think we can take that for granted between me and you. But I guess I want to get a sense because, the chairman laid this out, actually, and the poster that he had wasn't just about getting back to the moon, but it was about sustaining a presence on the moon. And I just feel like I don't have a good understanding of what your actual position is right now on that.
Well, I think, Senator, the first step to me is to return to the moon and determine its economic, its scientific, and its national security value for remaining there.
I saw that in your statement, and I guess I was confused because in your response to the chairman, you were talking about how helium-3. This is something that could very well shift the balance of power within the here on Earth. What else are you looking at? Like, what else is in your mind right now beyond helium-3 and the impacts there when you're talking about scientific, economic, and national security?
Well, Senator, that's what we need to get there to find out. All the best science fiction movies out there have something like helium-3 as the economic justification for an enduring presence, not just on the moon, but throughout space exploration.
So I guess, kind of as we've been talking about this, moon, Mars, two priorities, you were much more definitive about saying we need to get to Mars. So I guess I just want to ask you that same question. What are the scientific, economic, and national security priorities that you see more clearly when it comes to going to Mars right now than in terms of having a permanent presence on the moon?
Well, Senator, to be clear, I certainly hope in the future that we have lots of space stations, a full lunar outpost, a Mars outpost, and we're pushing even beyond that. I'm just saying we need to get back to the moon. We need to figure out why we need to be there, and I certainly hope there is a reason.
Why do we need to be what I'm trying to get a sense of, you seem much more definitive about saying we need to get to Mars and putting resources towards that effort. What are the specific economic, scientific, and national security interests you see there? Because I get a sense that you have some greater clarity there than you do when it comes to the moon.
Well, I would actually hope you're getting a sincere answer from me that we should be doing both and the other things. Now, Mars...
You think we can do both moon and the Mars on the current NASA budget?
I sure hope so. NASA it was built to do the near impossible and have a thriving space economy in low Earth orbit and continue extraordinary science missions to kind of unlock the secrets of the universe, sir.
Well, I guess I just want to reinforce what the chairman said. I mean, I think we need to have much more clarity in how we're talking about what it is our objectives when it comes to the moon. As mentioned, we have a lot more clarity about what China's objectives are, and I hope that that is something that you can clarify quickly if you are confirmed. When it comes to the International Space Station, what is your perceived timeline there in terms of when we should be starting to bring that down?
Well, Senator, first of all, I don't know of any reason why we should be bringing it down before what's currently scheduled. What I do think we need to do is maximize its remaining life, get as much of the high potential science and research to the station, figure out what that space economy is, so when the day does come to hand it off to the commercial LEO destinations, they are in a financially, self-sustaining type way.
And you talked about that in terms of the space economy. In terms of what should succeed the International Space Station, do you believe that that should be commercial only, or do you see prospects of the U.S. government or a government-run space station to succeed the International Space Station?
Well, right now, Senator, if we don't figure out the space economy, whether it's commercially operated or not, it's going to be entirely financially sustained by the government.
So but I guess I'm asking, do you have a preference in terms of, do you see a sense of need for a government run? I guess I'm just trying to ask you, what is it that NASA can do that commercial efforts can't do?
Well, that's a fantastic question, Senator. I mean, the line should be drawn again in terms of NASA undertaking the near impossible challenges that, again, no company, organization, or agency anywhere in the world would be able to undertake it. I gave a very good example, I think, in my opening remarks on nuclear propulsion. That's something that no company would ever embark upon. There is no obvious economic return. There's regulatory challenges. That's exactly the kind of thing that NASA should be concentrating its resources on.
Mr. Isaacman, could you talk about promoting the STEM workforce and in your role, if confirmed as NASA administrator, how you can inspire more people to go into STEM in general?
First step is I'm still working on getting my two daughters to want to grow up and enter into the STEM fields. I've tried with spaceflight, and I will get there. I would love to I would love to answer that really in two parts. I think the first thing is it is a fundamental obligation of NASA to inspire the next generation to want to be scientists, engineers, astronauts, pilots, doctors, researchers. And I think the best way NASA can do that is by executing on its mission. I mean, that is what's going to have children want to dress up as astronauts and scientists for Halloween, is to get back to the moon, to get to Mars, and to inspire the world with whatever the replacement is someday for James Webb that gives us 100 times the resolution. The second part, ma'am, is what I mentioned in my opening remarks about NASA being a force multiplier for science. Once we inspire them in their youth to want to grow up and join this grand endeavor, we want to get them hands-on in their various academic institutions. I think NASA can lend its expertise, its talent, its bulk buying of rockets, its standard bus architecture, and get academic institutions to want to contribute, whether it's building probes or sensors, get them hands-on so when they graduate, they want to join the greatest space agency in the world.
Will you be an advocate for science within the administration?
Yes, ma'am. I do believe the president is looking to usher in a golden age of science and discovery. Personally, I just spent a few days ago with 40 different science and researchers sharing the results from my most recent mission to space. I'm passionate about science. I'd love nothing more than to continue to see NASA go out and try and unlock the secrets of the universe.
Do you believe that the current Artemis architecture featuring SLS rocket or Orion spacecraft is the best and fastest way to beat China to the moon?
Senator, this is the current plan. I do believe it's the best and fastest way to get there. I don't think it's the long-term way to get to and from the moon and to Mars with great frequency, but this is the plan we have now, and we've got to get this crew around the moon and the follow-on crew to land on the moon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Isaacman, we had a great opportunity to talk yesterday in my office about a variety of issues. Artemis came up frequently, as I know it's. So my question for you is, do you agree that budget cuts would undermine that vision that you are expressing?
Senator, I think right now NASA has a pretty extraordinary budget. I believe it's close to every federal law enforcement agency combined times 2. With that budget and those resources available, I do believe we can do the near impossible. I think we can have multiple flagship scientific missions at once, which means we can have multiple space exploration missions at once and try and solve the space economy in low Earth orbit, sir.
Even with budget cuts, you'll be able to do that?
Well, Senator, I'm not familiar with what what's potentially being contemplated, but I will absolutely do the most with the resources available to try and deliver on NASA's world-changing mission, sir.
So given I think it's pretty clear we're likely to see constrained budgets. How do you envision speeding up our timeline for the Mars mission that you talked about, while also ensuring that Artemis is properly resourced and protected from any future cuts that may come their way?
Well, Senator, I think across the board, we have to acknowledge, as I mentioned in our opening remarks, we do have problems here. The presidents have called for return to the moon and a path to Mars since 1989. We spent a lot of money, and we haven't gotten this crew around the moon, let alone landing on it. If I'm confirmed, I absolutely am going to roll up my sleeves and get in the trenches with the best and brightest and figure out where we have our program challenges, what's impeding progress, clear those obstacles, and get back to delivering on the mission. If we can do that, then we're going to get the inspirational side of NASA going, we're going to get the STEM side growing, and the next generation is going to grow up and want to reach even farther, sir.
As you know, public-private partnerships between NASA and commercial space companies is a critical part of space exploration efforts. You know that firsthand from your flight to space twice with SpaceX. And I understand that you have business ties with SpaceX previous to your nomination as well. My question for you, given the fact that Elon Musk serves both as the CEO of SpaceX as well as is a White House employee and leader over DOGE, which has significant influence over spending and contracts. At least that's what we have been seeing. Certainly in our meeting, I was happy to hear you say to me that you are not beholden to Elon Musk in any way. So I want to give you an opportunity to say that on the record, if I may. So first, have you had any communication, emails, text, or calls with Elon Musk regarding how your plan to manage NASA since you were nominated?
Not at all, Senator.
What steps will you take, if confirmed, to ensure that he is not allowed undue influence, given the extensive contracts that he has with NASA, to make sure that he has no undue influence over the awarding or the implementation of those contracts?
Well, I think, Senator, I absolutely want to be clear. My loyalty is to this nation, the space agency, and their world-changing mission. I have to imagine that in the 1960s, Administrator Webb would have taken phone calls and welcomed the input from all the various contractors that were contributing to the endeavor. But they're the contractors. NASA's the customer. They work for us, not the other way around, Senator.
Mr. Isaacman, I was so pleased to hear you talk about nuclear propulsion. We have Oak Ridge National Labs. We have Arnold Air, which is the only place you can do hypersonic testing. And of course, Huntsville and Marshall Spaceflight is very close to our Tennessee border. We have a lot of Tennesseans that are there. So pleased to hear you put some emphasis on that. We agree with you that emphasis needs to be placed there. But I want you to just give me a synopsis of what you think is the most important area of competition as we look at what is happening with China, with Russia, with great power competition, what North Korea and Iran are doing.
Senator, thank you very much for the question. For starters, competition can work really well. I think competition from a commercial perspective is doing great. We've gone from a world where at one point in time the nation had a dependency on one launch provider and foreign rocket technology. Now we have a very mature commercial industry with several providers able to help us accelerate mass and people and astronauts into orbit. Well, competition works well on the global stage as well, ma'am, so long as we don't lose. And right now, I mean, that couldn't be more important in the ultimate high ground of space. I mean, that is a critically important domain. NASA will continue to press out, lead the way in that ultimate high ground, but we're going to need our partners in the Department of Defense, the Space Force. We're going to need to be collaborating and making sure they're watching out for us.
Exciting things on the horizon, and I mean it when you look at these astronauts and how smart they are and how inspiring they can be to young Americans to serve their country, to study science. Give me your thoughts on that and what an opportunity we have to take advantage of that.
Well, Senator, I completely agree. And as I mentioned before, I think it's a fundamental obligation of NASA to inspire the next generation to want to grow up and be scientists, engineers, astronauts, researchers, and set the bar even higher. And I do believe the first step on that journey is to execute on the mission. I mean, nothing's going to create more future scientists and engineers than seeing American astronauts on the moon, American astronauts on the Mars, in line with President Trump's vision, planting the stars and stripes on Mars. So I do think that is a fundamental obligation. I think that NASA right now, we could do a better job, if confirmed, on emphasizing quality content over quantity. There's, I think, about 300 different NASA social channels. They're awesome. They put a lot of good things out. I think we can narrow that down and make sure we're capturing the really inspirational footage, what everybody wants to see that inspires them to grow up and want to reach even higher.
Good. I think you'll have strong bipartisan support for doing that. I also want to get your commitment, if confirmed, to come to Alaska.
Senator, as a pilot, I've been fortunate to fly around Alaska quite a bit, and I would point out on aircraft that rolled off assembly lines in Wichita. I know Senator Moran would like to hear that. I'm looking forward to returning.
Good, because as you know, and you've helped pioneer commercial space flight, you know better than most that the future of space access isn't just Cape Canaveral or Vandenberg. It is increasingly spread across our entire country, including places like Alaska. The specific spaceport complex on Kodiak Island is the only high-altitude polar-capable spaceport in the United States. There is rising demand for facilities like that at Kodiak. In terms of both government and commercial launches. They've done both, and I would love to take you out to Kodiak Island, not just to see the largest brown bears in the world, of which we have thousands, but a really, really up-and-coming spaceport complex. Have you ever spent time out at the Kodiak Spaceport Complex?
Senator, I have been there. I did not see any bears. I was looking, and I would love to return, sir.
Okay, so you and I are going to return, and we'll get an eye on some bears, maybe do some fishing with Miss Trusty when she brings her family. But in all seriousness, that is spaceport complex that I think has enormous potential. Would you agree with that?
Senator, I think that, as mentioned before, space is the ultimate high ground. It's a vitally important domain for national security. I frankly think we need more spaceports. We have to always ensure our access to low Earth orbit and ensure national security.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Isaacman, the U.S. economy, national defense, infrastructure, they all rely on satellites extensively these days for GPS, for weather, for communications purposes, for surveillance, and much more. So a collision or a loss of key satellites could result in even in catastrophic national security and economic costs. As you know, the TRACS system, Traffic Coordination System for Space, was launched in 2024. It's being developed to provide situational awareness data across civil, military, and commercial sectors. Mr. Isaacman, if confirmed, how would you ensure that NASA coordinates with Department of Commerce and DoD on space situational awareness and space traffic management efforts?
Senator, thank you very much for the question. This is a subject that I'm pretty passionate about. My two missions to space, the #1 risk we faced was from orbital debris. For starters, I think NASA absolutely will play a role as this new frontier continues to open, and ideally we have lots of space stations and lots of activity and a great flourishing economic environment in space. I believe all of the information that we can gather from our assets on space debris should be funneled into a single mission control that has the ultimate situational awareness. But I have to say also the biggest threat, Senator, is what we can't track. What is so tiny, the millimeter-sized objects at orbital velocity that can shred a satellite or a spacecraft. And in that respect, we have to stop adding to the problem. The United States is very good at not adding to the problem. I can't say that's the same for some of our geopolitical rivals, sir.
Maybe you could speak with a little more specificity about the gravity of the problem. Paint the picture for those who might be watching these proceedings about how extensive this challenge has become.
Senator, absolutely. A lot of people think of whether it's a discarded second stage in orbit or a defunct satellite as the problem. We know where they are, and we can have trajectories that avoid them. The issue is the speck of paint that falls off that satellite that's now traveling at 17,500 miles an hour and can collide with another object going 17,500 miles an hour. I had an opportunity to visit the NASA facility, the White Sands Missile Range, and see what a 1 and 2 millimeter piece of aluminum does at near orbital velocities, and I can tell you what it penetrates through is it's eye-opening to say the least. It is an issue. We certainly need to do all we can to avoid any sort of kinetic conflict in low Earth orbit to stop adding to the problem. And again, I think the United States does a fantastic job at doing this. We need to work really hard to make sure others, maybe less responsible actors, don't add to the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As ranking member of the Aviation and Space Subcommittee, I am looking forward to getting a bipartisan NASA reauthorization done to make sure that NASA is able to execute its mission with a consistent vision and congressional support, free of undue influence from any temporary government employees. According to the Global Counterspace Capabilities Report published this month, the PRC is rapidly advancing a broad spectrum of counterspace capabilities as part of a sustained push to secure military power in orbit and expand their presence in space. The PRC has also started building its second satellite internet constellation in lower Earth orbit and has committed to continued human presence in LEO at its Tiangong space station. More than ever, NASA's missions need to be consistent and laser focused and avoid major subversions of mission priorities and diversion of funds, not only for our global space leadership, but also for national security. I'm going to, Mr. Isaacman, ask you a couple of yes/no questions, but first I just want to say that a sustained human presence in low Earth orbit is crucial for advancing scientific research, testing technologies for future deep space missions, and fostering a thriving economy and global leadership, as LEO serves as a unique environment for research, development, and training due to its microgravity environment. By supporting extended human operations in LEO, NASA can test exploration systems, conduct human research, and maintain operational expertise, vitals for missions on the moon and to Mars. These are not things that can be done by machine alone, and a gap in our human presence in LEO will likely result in ceding our leadership to the PRC. Mr. Isaacman, do you support maintaining continuous human presence in low Earth orbit?
I do, Senator. I think if reusability has given us anything, it's a very affordable path to send American astronauts to and from low Earth orbit.
Thank you. Elon Musk has suggested that the International Space Station's strategic value has run its course and should be deorbited as soon as possible to focus on a mission to Mars. For the last 20, and that's a quote, he said, as soon as possible. For the last 26 years, the strategic value of the International Space Station has been invaluable, serving as a beacon of the United States global leadership and a symbol of what we can accomplish through international cooperation. Funnily enough, although I don't think it's very funny at all, SpaceX has been awarded the contract to deorbit the International Space Station. Mr. Isaacman, do you believe there's still utility in maintaining a U.S. presence on the ISS at least through 2030 as currently planned?
Senator, as I mentioned in my prepared remarks, I think we need to use up every bit of life that's remaining on the International Space Station so we can crack the code on the space economy and better hand off those responsibilities to commercial industry. I am familiar with Mr. Musk's remarks in that. I do think he is a very accomplished entrepreneur. I would like to understand his rationale behind that, just as I think, Administrator Webb would want to hear from all of the commercial contract leaders from the 1960s during the space race.
But you don't think that we should deorbit the ISS now?
I do not think we should deorbit it now. I think we need to make the most use of the space station while we have it and figure out what we can accomplish in the unique environment of microgravity and figure out the space economy for commercial LEO.
Thank you. The Artemis program is critical in our effort to return to the moon, and returning to the moon is seen as a stepping stone for broader human exploration and critical for scientific discovery, advancing technology, and as a necessary preparation for eventually progressing to human mission to Mars. I know a few of my colleagues already today have tried to get a specific answer out of you, but you have avoided directly answering them today. So I ask again, Mr. Isaacman, do you support maintaining NASA's long-term mission to maintaining NASA's long-term mission to maintain a human activity on the moon?
Senator, I'm sorry if I'm not sounding clear on this. I think it's imperative that we do both. I think that's what NASA was created to do. I would love nothing more than to see this crew get around the moon, for us to land on the moon, figure out its scientific, economic, national security value, while we were also charting a course in line with President Trump's vision for American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on Mars.
So you think we can do both simultaneously?
I mean, we do multiple flagship scientific missions at NASA. We maintain a presence in LEO where we're undertaking dozens of scientific experiments at once. I think we can, ma'am.
You think we can maintain a mission, a presence on the moon and a mission to Mars simultaneously?
I think we can do the moon and Mars and beyond.
Okay. Whatever we can do to support the space program, I'm on board. I just have one final question I'm asking all the Trump nominees. If given an illegal or an unconstitutional order by President Trump or your superiors, would you oppose it?
I don't think President Trump would give an illegal order, but I would follow the law, ma'am.
And you would oppose if he were?
I don't believe the president would give me an illegal order, ma'am.
Okay, that's fine. But if given an illegal or unconstitutional order, will you oppose it?
I will always follow the law, ma'am.
So is that a yes? You will oppose the illegal order if given one by either the president or your superiors?
Senator, I will always follow the law.
I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Isaacson, I'm sure with your deep intellect that you know that the Aircraft Engine Research Laboratory in Cleveland, Ohio, was created 17 years before NASA was created. And there's a sign when you drive into the center that says, "For the benefit of all." What does that mean to you?
Well, Senator, I do believe that NASA's mission is to undertake the near impossible, to solve the most demanding, complex engineering challenges, to bring commercial industry, so commercial industry can follow, and to bring the rest of the world along the way.
And that's something that I'm sure you have a passion, a deep passion to make sure that we are always the leaders. Is that correct?
100%, Senator.
And just for the record, could you give me a sense of the scale of difficulty it was for you as a kid, if I can say that, as a teenager, to create a company that would become as successful as yours? Give me the scale of difficulty and kind of give me the one example of like a deep challenge you faced making that happen that you thought maybe was impossible.
Senator, there was certainly a lot of ups and downs over the last 26 years. I'd say probably some of the earliest challenges, although, I mean, as a company that went through the dot-com, the Great Recession, the pandemic, we certainly had our fair share of obstacles along the way. Probably some of the hardest was the earliest days, Senator, where we tried to grow through our own cash flows, which is always a challenge. And I was 16 years old, so I had to make sure I hid myself from any trade shows or in-person meetings. Occasionally, someone would show up at the house for a meeting, and my father fortunately took that for me.
It's always hard to meet underachievers. So congratulations on that. How will you use that skill set at a complex organization like NASA?
Senator, NASA is an extraordinary agency, and they are the most accomplished, well-respected space agency in the world. I want to do whatever I can and work alongside the best and brightest to continue that. I do suspect there are some things that I've learned through running two successful businesses over the last more than 2 decades that I think I can help bring to the agency. I would love to roll up my sleeves, figure out what are the challenges we have from a program management perspective that are causing everything to take longer than it should and cost more than it should. I'd like to instill a very strong mission-first culture at the agency that if we can execute on our mission and get to the moon, get to Mars, and all the other things, the inspiration, the STEM education will all take care of itself. A culture of ownership and accountability, that when we make mistakes, we own them, we fix them, and we get back to delivering on their important objectives.
Well, thank you for that. And I have one last question. Ms. Trustee, 100% unequivocal support from me. Hope to see my Democrat colleagues join us and see if we can get as many votes for you as humanly possible. But for Mr. Isaacman, I have one question. It does hinge, for me, the entirety of whether I can support your nomination or not. Who is the most important character in the movie Armageddon?
Clearly, Bruce Willis for the important self-sacrifice for all mankind, sir.
Mr. Isaacman, you have deep personal and financial ties to Elon Musk. You have invested tens of millions of dollars in SpaceX. You have paid millions of dollars to SpaceX for 2 private space flights. Your payments company, Shift4, has an ongoing, quote, global strategic partnership with Starlink worth millions each year. And according to a recent Wall Street Journal report, Musk personally asked you to lead NASA. Given SpaceX's significant interest before NASA, you can understand why the public would be concerned about conflicts of interest here. So let's try to set a few things straight. I understand that you met with Elon Musk at Mar-a-Lago in late 2024. Is that correct?
No, Senator. I was in Mar-a-Lago to be interviewed by the President of the United States.
So you did not meet with Elon Musk at Mar-a-Lago?
I went to Mar-a-Lago to be interviewed by the President of the United States.
I didn't ask you that. Did you meet with Elon Musk at Mar-a-Lago?
I believe he was one of dozens of people that were around Mar-a-Lago at the time, Senator.
So did you meet with him?
I would not say we had a meeting. We probably had a conversation in passing, Senator.
Okay, during that same trip, then President-elect Trump offered you the NASA administrator job. Is that correct?
At the conclusion of the meeting, Senator, he did.
Thank you. Was Elon Musk in your meeting when Trump offered you the NASA position at Mar-a-Lago?
Senator, I was interviewed by the President of the United States.
Was Elon Musk in the meeting when he offered you the job?
Senator, my meeting was with the President of the United States.
Elon Musk was not in the meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Senator, I was being interviewed and speaking with the President of the United States.
You can just say he was not in the meeting. Was he in the meeting or not in the meeting?
Senator, I'm trying to be as transparent as I can. I was being interviewed by the President of the United States.
It's not a difficult question. Was Elon Musk in the room when the President offered you the job?
Senator, my meeting was with the President of the United States.
I'm assuming that you don't want to answer the question directly because Elon Musk was in the room. I think that's the only conclusion anyone listening to this could reach, unless you want to dispel us of that notion.
Senator, again, I was being interviewed by the President of the United States, and I also say I have no.
Well, that's not, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to determine Elon Musk's role in this, and you're not willing to be fully transparent. Have you discussed your plans for NASA with Elon Musk?
I have not.
So those questions obviously raise serious questions. And I want to turn to one more specific question. Monitoring sea level rise to polar ice loss to wildfires, NASA's satellites are the backbone of climate research used by scientists, policymakers, and the public across the globe. NASA's Earth Observing System collects and archives more than 147 terabytes of data each day. This data underpins climate action efforts at every level of the government, and it drives global research collaborations, and it informs life-saving disaster response. It's a public good, yet the Trump administration is seeking to undermine that. A recent investigation found that large swaths of climate data sets, visualizations, and web tools, once publicly accessible, have been altered or taken down. This unprecedented rollback of public information compromises scientific continuity and transparency at a time of accelerating climate threats and extreme weather events. If confirmed, will you commit to fully restoring and maintaining access to data, as well as resisting any political pressure to sideline climate research at NASA?
Senator, I can tell you I am very passionate about the Earth Sciences Division inside of NASA, especially with respect to anything that has impact on human life and the financial repercussions for remediating things such as wildfires, landslides, flooding. Earth Sciences also plays a big role in near-Earth asteroid protection.
Will you make a commitment to restore all of that information so that it's available to the public? It's vital scientific information.
Senator, I have not been made aware of any information that's not being provided. I mean, I'm just not familiar with any of these changes, Senator.
I'm very disappointed in your question. All this information is vital to getting the information into the hands of scientists and ultimately ordinary citizens.
Mr. Isaacman, in response to Senator Duckworth, you said multiple times you will follow the law. Under every circumstance, you will follow the law. I appreciate that commitment. I want to go back and revisit the exchange you had with Senator Kim, because one component of the law you have said, and I'm glad to hear it, that under your leadership, America will beat China back to the moon. That's important. But the law is clear beyond simply going to the moon. That's part of it, that going to the moon shall be a stepping stone for further exploration of Mars. The ultimate objective is Mars, but going to the moon is critical. The law also specifies explicitly the administrator shall, and when legislation uses the word shall, it denotes a mandatory obligation. The administrator shall establish a program to develop a sustained human presence in cislunar space or on the moon. With respect to Senator Kim, you were reluctant to commit on a sustained human presence on the moon. Could you clarify your view on that to this committee?
Well, Senator, as a space enthusiast, I'd like nothing more, as I've said before, to see a number of lunar outposts and Mars outposts, and for us to even progress farther out into our solar system. If we are in an unlimited budgetary environment, we can maintain an ongoing presence on the lunar surface. I am more than supportive of it. I think it's imperative that we have to get back to the moon first, as quickly as we possibly can, figure out, again, the scientific, economic, national security value to being there, which I am very hopeful that we are going to find in order to support the ongoing presence on the lunar surface, sir.
So the statute is written in the disjunctive. It gives the choice of either the surface of the moon or cislunar orbit. What is your view on the Gateway project?
Senator, that's an area that if I'm confirmed, I would love to roll up my sleeves and get further understand what's working right, what are the opportunities the Gateway presents to us, and where are some of the challenges, because I think the Gateway is a component of many programs that are over budget and behind schedule, sir.
So you're describing Gateway as over budget and behind schedule. I will say there's a long history in NASA of administrations coming in and canceling programs and causing massive delays Barack Obama did that with a Constellation, and NASA struggled for years as a consequence. As administrator, are you going to cancel the Gateway program?
Senator, I have no intention as of now to say that I would cancel any program. I need to, if I'm confirmed, get in the job and understand where things are at. I want to assure you and this committee that I want to see America win and succeed and lead in space, whether that be the moon, Mars, low Earth orbit, and beyond. I do not want to see us come in second place, and I certainly don't want to see the right-hand side of that poster you put up, sir.
So I want to ask you again, because you said you'll follow the law, are you committed to a sustained human presence in cislunar space or on the moon? And that is federal statute.
Senator, if that is the law, then I'm committed to it.
Okay. All right, let's talk LEO. The International Space Station is managed at a Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. NASA is planning to retire the ISS by 2030, replacing it with one or more commercially developed space stations funded partially by NASA and partially by outside customers. Unfortunately, both NASA and commercial replacements are behind schedule. Do you agree that we cannot have a gap period between the ISS and its successor when there would be zero human U.S. presence in low Earth orbit?
I do agree, Senator. We cannot cede low Earth orbit to the Chinese.
Now, I would note in the first Trump administration, there were those in the administration pushing to deorbit the International Space Station prematurely. Given that we've invested over $100 billion in the station, I think that would be profoundly foolish to give up on that investment as long as it is safe to continue using it. After the administration floated this idea multiple times, the United States Senate passed legislation that I authored, 100-0. Every Republican and every senator came through committing that we would maintain the International Space Station at least until 2030, as long as it is safe and scientifically feasible. Will you commit to follow the law and not deorbit the space station before 2030?
Senator, I will absolutely commit to follow the law, and I think we need to maximize the return the taxpayers have invested in that orbital laboratory, use every bit of time we have to crack the code on the space economy, and give commercial LEO destinations a fighting chance when they inevitably take over, sir.